And slowly, people are dripping in, quite literally.
We're all L&D people here. We know that's just how it goes. It's part of the reason I like the music. Thank you. Is it's a little break from some chaotic days.
Where is everyone tuning in from? Curious to know. Maybe you can drop it in the chat. Hi, Nash.
Inez, I've been researching Portugal. How exciting.
Auburn, Alabama, Stockholm, Sweden.
Wendy, it's
Lisbon,
lovely to have
Portugal.
another Eastern US. I'm coming in from Lexington, Kentucky.
Bangalore, India. I'm glad you could make it.
All right, so what I'd like to do is just ask you all to consider the prompt on the screen. Think about the common misconceptions that you've experienced. In about 3 minutes, we're going to get you into groups of 4 or 5, depending on how many people we've got going, and ask you to consolidate your lists. We'll have about 6 minutes, how about that, to consolidate your list, and we'll come back and continue forward. If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute or ask in the chat. I think we're at a size now where that's totally manageable.
And with that as well, let us officially open this space here. Hi, my name is Stefan. I'm your ThoughtLab host, and I'm joined today with April. April is working from the States. She's a freelancer and has specialized herself in making sure L&D works out well for startups and where L&D is not always put under your attention. She's doing some lovely work. I've had some read and some look at her stuff, and I'm very happy for her to be here with us. Like April just said, the prompt is there on the screen, and she'll take you on a wonderful journey in just a few moments. And for those that just joined, there's a wonderful prompt on the screen. Give it a few moments to think about, write it down. We'll go into breakout rooms in just a minute or so. What do you reckon, April?
I think we're in a good place. I think we could go ahead and set up our groups. It looks like we have, I'll leave it up to you. You can go into 4 or 5. And let's go ahead and spend 6 minutes in there. Take the time, kind of put your misconceptions together, and then we're going to come back and have a quick chat about what kind of common misconceptions. I'm really excited to hear about it from a European perspective. I haven't had that experience yet, so I'm really excited to see how it is measuring up to the experiences we've had here in the US.
All right, then here they go. Have fun.
Hi. Oh, we have someone not joined.
And I guess at this point we could say, welcome, Inga. We're going to be sending you off to breakout rooms. And there you can talk about the prompt here. Any misconceptions about L&D you may have heard about. Yeah, consolidating that list, putting it together with your colleagues.
Wonderful. I was like, am I the only one joining? No.
No. They're in the breakout rooms.
I was like, this is such a relevant topic. I hope that's not happening. It's breakout rooms. Okay, I'm really.
Yeah.
I can also stay here. I actually have to finish writing a note. I'm terribly late. So if you don't mind, just leave me here and I'll
Sure.
join in on the fun as soon as we get started.
Sounds good.
That has happened to me a lot in 2020 when you show up to a webinar and you realize you're the only guest.
Yeah.
I thought I would just play it on the side, but no. That's obviously not happening.
There's no escape.
No escape. And then you have a very in-depth conversation around it.
Intense.
But I can finish a quick note. That's actually not so bad. It's one of these days where I'm just one small thing after the other.
I'm gonna turn my music back on.
And don't mind me if you want, even I can tune down a little my sound. So continue chatting. I'm not gonna judge you.
Okay. Is it Stefan? Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. My partner's name's Steven, so
There we go.
I have it's built in. Yeah, I hope you're able to participate as well, not just moderate.
No, absolutely. I've written down actually 2 things. So let's see what the rest of the group comes up with, and I can go along with everybody in that sense. Sounds like ice cubes in a can.
Yeah, I think it's from let's see. It's from some mocha brewing game. Brewster's Cafe, track 1.
Okay. I'm actually quite curious, like you call it out like this, the gamer's soundtrack. I'm like, you don't hear that every day.
Yeah. Well, they build, it just makes sense, right? Because they design and build this music to generate focus and interest. And I like softer stuff, right? I don't need like first person shooter action where it's really intense, but this just kind of keeps me, and I don't know the songs. So it's just, just really nice. And I'll find myself, I'm just like jamming along and I'm like, I don't even know this game, but like I kind of want it.
Yeah. I absolutely hear you. There was jazz punk. Oh my, what is it called? It's a game that recently got developed that actually uses puzzle and jazz or funk.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I absolutely want it. I
I'm a
absolutely
very
will
big fan
play
of
it.
funk.
It's just, oh man, I just want to find it now.
Okay.
You know, I just check on my phone because I have it connected. Here we go. Wish lists. Backbeat.
I'm going to take a look at that.
I don't know. I think right now it's just for PlayStation, but
I have a PS4. I'm
okay,
not a
there we go.
gamer. I know it makes right. This conversation makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about. I totally don't. I have two daughters. They're 20 and 16. They like to play the games, but I'm getting into. I love puzzle games, so
Yeah.
I'm 100% it.
That's sweet. I've been a gamer since very young age, and I'm glad to say that my dad actually went along with it, and my mom too. We used to play Spyro the Dragon,
Oh,
and my dad still plays Gran Turismo racing games. So
very cool.
we're still active together in a sense.
That's really great. Looks like we're getting everybody back here. Hello, welcome back. We're having a
Yeah.
little conversation about gaming
And soundtracks.
and soundtracks. That's important.
All right, 1 second, and they should be back.
All right.
There we are.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time. I hope you all got to chit chat a little bit and know each other, find out some of the challenges. I'm going to go ahead and pause my music here. So what I'd like to do next, I'm just going to do a tiny little introduction. And then we're going to go in to the content that you all have created, because frankly, you have, we've got 12 people here that have experience and I'm only one. So I'm really excited to hear the content that's going to be coming out of this. So just a tiny little bit about me. My name's April. Hi. Really excited to meet all of you. I know I say excited a lot. I'm a very excitable person. This is not coffee, it's tea, because I couldn't have coffee while I was presenting because I get very excitable. So I have my very calm tea with my honey and my very calm music, mostly because this is how my brain feels all the time. Like things are just coming out of it all the time and I get very excited. But this is why I'm doing this today is I have all of this stuff in my head and I can't wait to share it with folks and see how does that work with their world? Is this experience that you've had? Do you have a different experience? And what that does is it helps me kind of just give new perspective so that I can understand that, hey, I only have one tiny perspective. There are so many more out there, and it gives it so much more depth. I think this is probably why I landed in learning and development in my career. I've had about 20 years, 24 years in corporate America. I've done sales, I've done support, I've done consulting, but L&D is bar none my absolute favorite thing, and it's where I've spent most of my time developing. I get excited about how information comes together, how practices come together, and that always leads to learning, which is like my absolute favorite thing to do. Folks are always asking me like, what's your hobby? And I'm like, learning new hobbies. Like that's my hobby. I'm not very good at sticking with a hobby once I have it. So currently AI is absorbing a lot of my brain, and I'm testing out all kinds of things to see how it works together. Stefan and I were talking about, I'm trying to get into gaming. My partner lives 700 miles away, so we thought, oh, this could be a good, like, digital dates. This could be a good thing. And I am also trying to do some embroidery because sometimes I have to stop looking at screens. And I'm also trying some silly watercolor art. I can't take art seriously for myself because I don't have a talent for it. So if I approach it and say, hey, it's okay if it's silly, it's really calming for me. So that's just a little bit about me. But really, at the end of the day, this is the real reason that I'm doing this, is he's the little love of my life. His name is Pippin. And, you know, he's a fancy little pup, and he has to have fancy little things. And that means that I have to make some money. I also have a daughter in college. So that happens too, but she didn't get a picture. So that's just a little bit about me. So I thought right now what I'd love to do is break into some of the common misconceptions that you all were talking about. So this is a perfect size group. Please feel free to take yourselves off mute. I'd love to run a highly interactive, put your hands up, you know, do whatever it is you'd like to do to get engaged. If you're just sitting, listening, taking notes, that's fantastic too. But I would really love to hear, we had 2 rooms, if we could have folks pop out and, you know, what were some of the consensus things that everybody kind of experienced as a common misconception about learning and development?
I was a note taker from our group,
Okay.
so I can share what we had.
Okay, if you could just give us a couple, and then I want to make sure that the other groups got some space too.
So we've got probably the first thing we all thought about: obsession with the new shiny object, or thinking that tech is the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same line, training is the solution. A piece of training, a piece of content. And I'll add one more in: if you know it, you can do it.
Ooh, that's a good one. If you know it, you can do it.
And we
And
have a
what was
couple
your
of
first
more,
one?
but the first one was obsession with new shiny objects.
Oh, yes, shiny objects.
Or tech is the solution.
Yeah, got that. Awesome. Okay, somebody from group 2 here. Did we have anything else different?
We were discussing that it's actually the misconception that it costs a lot of money and it doesn't bring any monetary value to the company. Also that it's very often seen as one-dimensional, so more focused on training, workshops, e-learnings, but not the development piece or leadership development or everything that it entails. It's also very often seen not as a science behind it. It's just something that we can easily do. And I think very often it was not a priority, and they overlook learning and development in companies very often.
Maria, thank you so much for sharing that. I would agree. All right. Anna Maria, or anyone else from group 1, what other content did you want to add?
I can add because I took notes, so I have everything here. We also had I teach and you listen.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Nitin just added one into the chat: failure is not an option in learning. So learning is not about failure, it's about getting things right. We also had learning equals e-learning very often, so just courses.
Oh, okay.
And we also had we're treating the symptoms and not the cause.
I am amongst my folks here. Yes.
If I'm missing anything, Ellie and Nitin and Satang and Edrit, feel free to add.
Zero learning support is works. Order takers. Oh, we are so going to talk about that today. We don't need to be part of the needs analysis process. Yes. Oh, you all did wonderful work. All right. Hopefully you guys are able to see the notes that I'm taking. I was just putting them up there because I wanted us to be able to see all the amazing things that you all put together. I'm going to go ahead and bring up just a couple of things that I experienced is we're too slow. We need it now, 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 now. Now, I would love to say that we're too slow can be part of, we're not part of the needs analysis. We're one-dimensional. They only see the result of what we're putting out, right? They can only see that, oh, you're just doing a lecture, like you're just doing a webinar. They don't understand all of the things behind it. We're out of touch with needs. Hello, we're not part of the needs analysis. That is definitely a major problem there. We're only for big companies. I get this one a lot. Atlassians, Unilevers, Oracles, Microsofts, they're the folks that have learning and development. We don't need that. We're not big enough for that. Another set of, we produce new content immediately, right? It's like we have a little magic drawer that we can just reach into and like, oh, here's the learning you were asking for. It's no big deal. And that we know everything about everything, or we need to know everything about everything. And I remember generally it's tough to catch me off guard and especially difficult to catch me speechless, but I was working for a startup company that is an enterprise level software. I mean, it was just super deep. Like compare it to Microsoft Office, all of the applications in Microsoft Office, like that would be how deep this product was. And I was the only L&D person in a company of 1,500 people. And I remember the CEO said to me one time, well, I mean, you should know everything about all of our products. Like you're the L&D person. And I just sat there like, he really said that. He really said, I have to know how everything in this product works. Exactly. It was insanity. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a problem because I shouldn't be the source of information. We're not necessary. I think I heard that one over there. Tunnel vision. And I think I hear that a little bit over here as well, treating symptoms, not cause. They only see the result. There's no science behind it. I teach you, listen. When I say tunnel vision, what I mean is a lot of companies are focused only on sales and product development, right? And training and learning and development doesn't organically in a lot of experiences fall into that. And so because the companies are so focused on sales and what one size fits all, fantastic. Oops, let me go back one. And then I thought I had one more here. I guess I don't. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and clear my drawing there and say it looks like we've all experienced some very similar misconceptions. And so what I'd like to do now is open up the floor because we are such an interaction group. Or if you all want to use the annotation pieces, I'm a huge fan of annotating. If you want to take a look at this and maybe just do a little stamp next to the ones that you're identifying with the most, that would be really helpful as we're going to go forward into the next session. Does everyone know how to use the annotation stamps?
Not sure if it's turned on at the moment.
Oh, I see. Okay.
'Cause I cannot see the option myself.
Got it. Okay. Well, then we'll go ahead and pass on for that. So what I'd like to do now is we've talked about the misconceptions of what's happening with L&D. I'm going to hit a couple more in the beginning as we go forward. One of my favorites is that everyone knows, everyone went to school. Like, why do we need an L&D department? Like, everybody's been to school, everybody's taught somebody something. Like, you know, the product manager can do it. And that can lead into some challenges. So what I'd like to do next is talk about a case study. So this was a company that I worked with, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it, and then I want to take you in to the approach that I took, and then we're going to have another exercise. So the company has doubled their employee count in 4 months. So they were small, they were a 50 employee company, and they doubled to 100 in 4 months, which is pretty big deal. They're a remote-based company. They had their development site was in Kyiv. Their home base was in Santa Barbara, but they kind of had people everywhere. So in 4 months, they doubled their employees. The company was founded in 2012. So still a fairly young company. They are a SaaS provider in the logistics and supply chain industry. And the reason they were founded is they were trying to solve complicated shipping issues, like how do you ship a full-size wooden horse? Like, the owner of the company owned a shipping store, like a postal store. And this very first customer that came in, that was what they wanted to ship, was like a giant wooden horse. And he was like, I don't know how to do that. And so that got him really thinking, and that's where the inception of this company came from. They raised $32.1 million in funding over 4 rounds. Now, some of you might be saying, we're in learning and development. Why are you telling me so much stuff about the company's finances and where they're going and how old they are? Because these are the things that matter when you're positioning L&D. And I think that it's really easy because L&D, I like to think of it as it can be cocooned inside of a company. It's cocooned maybe from direct client interaction. It's cocooned from having to deal with getting funds. But everything that's happening in these sections is affecting how L&D, and these are the buttons that we can push. And these are the levers that we can pull to say, I can help you here, because most people don't look at it that way. So they've raised $32.1 million over 4 rounds of funding. So that means they've gone out and said, hey, everybody, we're doing this super cool thing. Would you like to give us some money? And we'll hopefully give you some money later. Like, that is as complicated as it needs to be. And their most recent funding was given by a private equity round. Does anybody know why that would be important? And if not, that's totally cool. Most smaller, Stefan, did you have something?
Yeah, that's when they go public in that sense.
Good question. So private equity, public would be like your IPO, where like you or me or Maria could go and buy a piece of their stock and they would get money from that. Private equity, and I learned all this stuff the hard way. I wish I could say there was a course I took and I learned how all of this worked, but I didn't. So when smaller startups that aren't public yet because they don't have enough customers, yes, PE, that's perfect. In our chat here, is it Nitin? PE expects returns and usually hurts decision-making process. Yes, you've had the experience. We're going to talk about that one here in a minute. But outside of private equity, there's usually 2 other sources that companies are funded. One is what they call angel investors, and that's usually really, really early when it's a baby company. And that usually comes from friends, family, business associates, folks that the founder knows very well. Not always, it's not exclusive, but that's generally where the money comes from. And it's not huge amounts. And then you have venture capitalists, and they bring money. And I used to think that VC and private equity was very similar, but it's not. VCs, venture capitalists, they want to put money into companies and they want it to produce quite quickly. And they generally want the company to get IPO or get on the market as a public company quite quickly. Again, there's tiny exceptions to that. And then private equity says, look, you don't have to go public, but you have to make money. Okay, so knowing where your company is in its funding rounds and its funding sources matters to L&D. Okay, so that's it. That's this company. So they got a bunch of money in 2021, which of course is what led to doubling their employee count, right? And nobody gets money for free. So the next thing we want to talk about is, what did that mean? So we took this money from the private equity, super cool, right? But it wasn't free money. They had some stipulations or pieces that they had to accomplish in a very short amount of time. And so this company had to increase by 20% their ARR. So they had basically 12 months, 9 to 12 months, depending on when you started counting, to increase their ARR. Does anybody know what ARR means?
Annual
No.
recurring revenue.
Perfection. Yes, annual recurring revenue. Because they're a SaaS startup, they get clients. Clients pay them a certain amount of money a month or a year. We're all familiar with it. Like if you use Spotify, you're contributing to their ARR. So they have recurring revenue. Now, that was the big to-do that came with the money that they got. So they hired me. They had absolutely no L&D. This company was from 2012. I mean, they're not a baby company, but they'd never had L&D before. And so I negotiated a lot, and they needed a lot. They wanted a lot. And I was like, the original salary was not acceptable. And I was like, I can't do that. So we worked around it, and I knew where they were, and I knew I was going to become a big cost center for this company. So I looked at their history and their case study. I looked that they said, oh, we have to increase our ARR by 20%. Now, those are questions I asked. I said, what is the absolute most important thing that this company has to accomplish? And it took a couple rounds, because it was, oh, well, our employees need to understand the industry better. They kept giving me information that was coded for L&D. And I said, no. What does the company have to accomplish? I don't need you to tell me what I need to do. I need you to tell me what you have to accomplish and by what date. And then let's work together and figure out how I can feed into that. And I think that conversation is what really set the tone for getting this company to understand what L&D can bring to them. So we got the increase by 20%. And I said, okay, cool. I worked on it a little bit, looked at their challenges and said, your employees, you just doubled employees, right? So we have to create a baseline in onboarding for your new employees. And I need to know, what are the most important things they have to be able to do? What do they need to know? And what do they need to be able to do for everybody in the whole company? And one of the things that they said is our SMEs, our subject matter experts, are exhausted. Is anybody surprised that the SMEs are exhausted when they just doubled their employee count in 4 months? Of course your SMEs are exhausted. They haven't had any time to, they don't have anyone else that can answer these company specific questions. So, and they're ramp up the sales team quickly. Like, that's one of my pet peeves, when they're like, we have to do this fast. And I'm like, cool. Do you have all the content created? Do you know what the objectives are? Like, fast is objective. I hate to break it to you. So, these were the pieces. These 4 were the things that I said, okay, if we need to get you to a 20% ARR increase, these are the things that I can do right away. This is the fastest I can do. And here's the results of what that will be. And frankly, the baseline or the onboarding for new employees and reducing the drag on that, the subject matter experts, were what they said were the most important, even though when they started, it was ramping up the sales team quickly. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and ask if anybody wants any clarification. Are there any questions about why we're talking about private equity funding in an L&D conversation, or any other questions? Okay. All right. So this is the presentation that I gave them. This is it. I gave them one slide. So 2 weeks after I started with the company, they flew me out to the headquarters in Santa Barbara. And they were like, nobody understands what learning and develop is going to do. And I was like, oh, that is such a good question. Can I answer that on the all hands? And they were like, yeah. They didn't all hands every week, so, or every 2 weeks, sorry. So they were always scrambling for content. And I was like, why do you do this every 2 weeks? That's insanity, but whatever. I was like, yeah, I would love to have a section. I said, so I got up, and it's, you know, broadcast, and I had actually had a lot of, or I had people saying, you know, what do you actually do? And I was like, that is such a good question. I'm glad you asked. I am very curious. I am very collaborative, and I make and bring a lot of energy. And, you know, they're all just sitting there with like blank face. And I said, that's fair. You don't know what that means. And so I said, you know, learning and development is a support team. Everything that this team, at that time it was just me, will produce is support for an objective for another team. I'm never doing anything just for me. I'm doing everything to support everyone in this organization. We are a support system to organize, distribute, set expectations, and communicate with other teams. That's what we do. So I like to think of it as like bees. You know, and at this point, they're like, this lady's crazy. And I was like, yeah, we're bees. So we fly around, and we go to each department, and we gather all of this pollen, right? We gather up all of this information. Do we know what to do with all of it? Nope. But that's our job. Our job is, as a worker bee, we go out and we gather information. We do it from content. We do it from existing documents. We work with subject matter experts. Sometimes we go out into the internet and look at industry stuff. And I was like, that's really cool. And then we bring it back to the hive, right? And that's where the collaboration comes in. And then we take all of this pollen and work together and constantly work with each other to adjust the content that I have, the experience that I have. What do you need? You know, what does your team need? What's your department need? And we make honey, right, through that collaboration. And that is energy. And so then we distribute the honey, we distribute the energy back out to the company. And that is what charges the team with being able to organize, distribute, set expectations, and communicate. And at the end of it, they were all like, oh, that's what you do. And I was like, that's what I do. So I'm going to be working with everybody on lots of stuff. Please don't be surprised when I just pop up on a product call, or if I'm listening to you in a client success call. It isn't because I'm judging you. It's because I'm gathering pollen to try to figure out how I can make you or a future you's life easier. So I'm going to pause there and say, yes, I hung an entire presentation on one slide with 3 pictures and 3 words. And luckily at the end of it, you know, they all looked at me and said, okay, we're so excited So what is this? This slide explains why T&D needs a seat at the strategy table. Yes, 100%. And that's why we're having this conversation, is once you understand how a company is structured, how they get their money, and what they have to produce to keep getting that money, then you can start talking in strategic terms. But if we keep talking in e-learning, and there's nothing wrong with those things, those are our important, like, anchors. We have to talk about objectives and this and that. Outside of L&D, they don't understand it. Okay. So what I'd like to do is we're going to send you all back out to breakouts. So I'd like everybody to go. And I want you to think about your company and what you do know about it, right? You may not know all these answers, and that's okay. But in the breakout, feel free to work on your own, because I think that if that's the way you work best, that's fantastic. Or, work together, ask each other questions. But let's get into our breakouts. We're going to spend about 10 minutes. I know we're going to wrap up. Maybe a little longer. I promised Stefan we probably wouldn't even go a whole hour, but I could be wrong. I want you to think about a theme or a way to present what you do. You don't have to use the B's to communicate to someone outside of L&D how you support your company and what they have to accomplish. And so when we return, I'd like to have at least one idea from each group to offer. And so if we could go ahead and send them out, let's do 8 minutes, Stefan, if that would be great. Perfect.
Sending him off now.
Question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So as a group, do we have to build this together, or no?
Fantastic question. I want you to think of your own place. So
Okay.
as the group portion is there so that if you have a question or you want to bounce an idea off somebody, it's available. But this is, you can work on your own. Cool. I want you to think about your specific situation.
Sending them now.
Perfect.
3 threes.
Perfect. It's so delightful to get to present with somebody that's producing.
Awesome. Quite interesting. I think this is Super Mario.
It's Wii. It's the Mii Plaza.
It's the Wii. It's the Wii.
Yeah. It's the Wii. It's so
Yeah.
close though. It's so close to Super Mario.
Just hit it off. Just miss it. Just miss it.
It's same family.
Yeah, it's the same family. It's all Nintendo.
It's so funny because I look at the list and every time I'm like, ooh, I like this song. It's by it's called Demon Gummies. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. But that's who made the song. But this is not. This is Lo-Fi Leah. I think this is going to be my go-to for like everything I teach from now on. This is going to be like my welcome music.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what we'll do is when everybody comes back, we'll do a quick debrief. And then I'm just going to put up like contact information if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn. So we don't have too terribly much left.
All right. Yeah, feel free to take it over the hour.
Okay.
I'm gonna round it off. We'll give you that host role. You already have it anyway. We'll stop the recording, but
Okay.
if there's more content for people, more questions, they want to get into it, take it.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you.
So, 20-year-old in college, 16-year-old probably in graduation.
She's literally, this is finals week, so she's a sophomore. Next year she'll be junior, so she still has 2 more years of high school left.
Yeah.
So next year she'll be junior and then a senior and then college for her. So I'm in college for 8 years, at least financially.
Okay. Yeah, I can imagine. I've chosen the long route myself. I've put myself in college and university and everything for quite a bit of time.
I think that's, I didn't finish college all in one go. I took a year off between high school and college. I actually was told I was not college material in high school. It's a long story. So not everybody's smart enough to go to college.
I heard something similar to that.
Right? Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Why would anybody say that? But it probably took me 8 years to finally finish my bachelor's degree. And I think there were some benefits to that. Hopefully you're going to see those too.
Oh yeah, no, I've taken 7 years. So
yeah.
I've taken my sweet time to go around the block, play around and
find out what
explore
you like.
work fields and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's more than one way to do almost everything.
Absolutely.
All right, we're about to get everybody back.
Yeah. There we go. So they should have 30 seconds officially, and then they're back.
Okay. Wonderful. Welcome back, everybody. All right, so if you would like to, in the chat, if you have come up with a theme that you would like to, we should have at least 3, 1 from each room. In the chat, I would love to go for more than that. Stefan shared with me that if we do go over time, I'm not a fan of going over time, but I don't want to cut anyone off. That if they have questions, that they'll just pass me the host ball and we can chit chat as we need to. But let's go ahead and who would like to be first up to kind of give us a little bit of a positioning statement about why this is your theme, and then tell us what you'd like to move forward with.
Can I go first? I have to go drop off my little one. It's still early in California for school.
Absolutely, yes.
And apologies, he's watching something, but our group, we didn't say anything and I'm running around. But my theme is the virtuous circle of talent, because I see myself as the person in charge of onboarding and helping you transition for your job success. And then I go into the next bucket of develop and engage and responsible to transform that talent. And then I take that same talent and develop them into the next generation leaders for the company. And those same leaders will be responsible to hire and promote people in the company and continue that cycle of also building out great talent. And then from that great talent, you attract, hire, and promote great talent again. So that cycle is still going. And that same talent that you hire and promote, they come in and also help you hire new people, and you do it all over again on board. So you see, it's those 5 buckets that I see myself in, and I have them in a circle, and that's what I've been using to really talk about my role and why it's very strategic for me to have a seat at the table to help with. We're making recruiting plans.
Yes.
We're making upskilling, there's a change management. We have new tools to roll out. How do I plug myself in? We have managers to develop so they could train these employees and hire new people. So it's a virtuous cycle that I see myself, and it never ends because I have different hats to wear. And I'll keep quiet
That's
now.
right. I think that was phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing that. A little circle of life, and what company doesn't need life in the middle of it, right? At the end of the day, they don't run on their own. I mean, I know AI is progressing, but it isn't it's not going to take over. It's all about mastering those prompts, and we're all going to get there. But Satang, thank you so much for sharing that. I love it. All right. Who would like to hop up next?
I can go next. So
Wonderful.
the theme that I came up with is the theme of having a very big flower bouquet. And I see myself as the florist, and all of the different flowers in the bouquet represent different learning and development opportunities. So my job is to understand which flower maybe is a little bit dried out, which one needs to be taken out, maybe a new flower needs to be added to the bouquet, and just inviting everyone to also choose the learning opportunities that are going to have the biggest impact on their development at the moment.
I love that. What about your company, like of the things that we talked about, put you in that direction?
Yeah, the case study really resonated with me because I'm in a very similar situation, right? So startup, lots of venture capital, employee size doubled very quickly, and basically there was no bouquet at all. So now I really want to make sure that there's like a low entry barrier for people to start picking their flowers, so they can get started.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody from room 3? Or anyone else that would like to share their thought?
I'm happy to share. I don't know what room I was in.
Okay. You were 3. Thank you.
There we go. Nice. So the first thing that came to mind was they, whoever they are, have a big jumble of ideas, and I find a way to make that clear and communicable. Is that a word? Yeah. To the rest to the team, the people who are being trained. And then the other one was around just finding common problems and then finding ways for those individuals through learning to solve them themselves. So there isn't, that was like the SME drag, that stuff that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Is a big one, I think, for my organization, but also my experience of often, staff or individuals think that there's always somebody else that needs to solve the problem. And often if somebody's learned effectively, they can do that for themselves.
Yeah, right. So it sounds like, learning isn't the terminal, it's the beginning. You don't, stop the process at learning, you start the process at learning. That's a little bit what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah,
what about your company structure kind of put you in that direction?
So I think my role is probably a little bit different to most of the people on the call in that I train clients as well as staff. And so I guess that thinking around solving problems for people rather than teaching them to solve them themselves comes from work with clients. But I think that it applies just as much to staff.
Yeah, fantastic. Yes. Self-feeding.
Hmm.
Wonderful. Stefan.
Yeah, we're slowly coming to the end of the hour. As April said, we'll be opening up the space for more questions after this for those that have to drop off. Sorry to see you leave. I'm one of them. April,
Yes.
thank you so much. We're going to be putting you in contact with everybody that signed up for the session. This recording is going to be available for them. And where could they find you?
I'm so glad you asked. They can find me on LinkedIn. It's just that's my direct link. I'll go ahead and yeah, I'll pop it into the chat. And then I have a website. It's my company name, Allons-y Innovation. Yes, that is there for the French word, and I did bastardize it so that it's easy to digest over here. And I would love, I've got a little sign up sheet there, more info. It's technically more info, but I have a little button on there that's like, stay in touch. I love connecting. I love collaborating. And that is, you know, that's part of the reason I'm doing these things.
All right.
Thank you
So
very
for those that want to
much.
stick around, feel free to do so. April's available. And thank you very much for joining us this ThoughtLab. Thank you,
Yes,
April.
thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Maria,
Thanks,
for everything.
April. Thanks,
And catch you next
Stefan.
time.
Bye, everyone.
Yes.
See you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.